Hello, I'm Gary Wright and I'm at EBAday 2018 in Munich. And I'm joined today by Thomas Nielsen, the Chief Digital Officer, Global Transaction Banking at Deutsche Bank. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, we hear an awful lot about open banking. And how do you think the industry is gearing up for open banking?
Well, I should preface this as saying I'm new to the financial services industry. I come from a long technology career at platform companies like Microsoft and Adobe, who fundamentally are open in their nature and allow other parties to build on them. And I think the financial services, banks specifically, are probably running a little bit behind for where the rest of the world has been over the last 3 to 5 years in terms of creating these open ecosystems. And I think we're sort of just in the early phases of moving from these monolithic walled gardens into a more open platform that allows us to collaborate between banks, but also integrate with fintechs, etc. So I think we're playing catch up to the rest of the technology industry, but we're just now getting to the point where we are understanding what this means technology from a regulatory perspective and a business perspective. So it's probably the most exciting part right now that we're going through, but it also feels that we're a little bit behind the ball.
So that's the industry, but if I turn to your bank strategy, where would you say you are in terms of the embracing of open banking?
Yeah, so we have been working at Deutsche Bank for quite some time, more than 2 years, since we first launched an API platform enabling third parties to operate and work within our ecosystem. And that was sort of primarily driven from our retail bank in Germany. And we have gained a lot of experience from that, all the way from performance to business models, and actually have a pretty thriving ecosystem around open banking. Now we are sort of taking that to the next level and applying some of those learnings and scalability to the transaction bank for corporates, for financial institutions. And we just recently actually acquired a small company in India that has specialized in building API open banking platforms on behalf of other banks, and that's going to help us accelerate our work into the open banking platform for transaction and corporate banking. But on that note, it's as we know, we're dealing with very sophisticated multinational clients with cross-border transfers, and open banking, while it's enabling a lot of new workflows, also causes us a lot of thinking around security, regulatory models, business models around. So we're well underway now, I would say, and you'll see us in the next 6 to 9 months really starting to get serious in the external space around our open banking in the transaction banking space. But we want to do a crawl, walk, run. We want to make sure that what we launch is ready, it's well tested, it's secure, and it's built for purpose. So we are doing this together with several of our customers and existing clients and new clients.
So picking up on that, what are some of the regulatory and security issues that banks and financial institutions are wrestling with, given that open banking is about the free movement of customer-sensitive data across multiple ecosystem players?
I think it's exactly what you just said. It is an open industry standard or set of standards, set of APIs that allows multiple parties to collaborate. And therefore, in the traditional world of banks talking to banks, we have set up one-to-one relationships between banks that are highly secure, audited, very special setup. In an open banking world, we don't really have that much control over how and who uses the systems. On some level, we do have control over who we can let into our semi-walled gardens. But as we think about the next generation of fintechs and systems that are collaborating with banks, we start dealing with things like, well, where's the data stored? Who owns the data? Governments around the world, regulators, will have a keen interest to make sure that the data generated in that country will stay in the country and be accessible. And now we have a set of geopolitical challenges we have to go work on. I actually see it as a competitive advantage, specifically for Deutsche Bank, but generally banks that have big multinational presence like we do, we know how to deal with different regulations in different countries. Now we have to figure out a way to do that in a way that will enable fintechs and other partners to build around us, on top of us, and collaborate. So I see regulation actually as a competitive advantage in the open banking world, but also something that we really have to think through. And the same with security and information security in general. We are dealing with money, whether that's payments or financial instruments, a letter of credit. And if you look at the last 5 to 7 years around the data breaches that have happened around the world, there's not really a country that is immune to that. Whether it's credit card information that's been leaked, and most of it has been in the consumer space. We certainly want to make sure that we don't end up in a situation where we have one of those scenarios, because it can be damaging, not just to a Deutsche Bank, but the entire industry as we move from sort of monolithics to open. So this is something we're spending a lot of time thinking through and partnering external as well.
Thomas, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us.